2004 BMW X5 with the 3.0 liter water pump replacement. I'm Brian Essick from How To Automotive, and I'm going to walk you through that process. We're going to start by moving this inlet snorkel here on the top of the cowling here. Just remove the clips that are here, and then once you get the clips removed, and then it kind of just pulls off. So we need to get the fan blade and shroud out. But the first step to do that is to remove this little sensor here. So you're going to pull it towards the passenger side of the car, and then lift the nose up, and then push it towards the driver's side of the car, and then lift the tail of it out. And it kind of gets stuck a little bit. You have to kind of play with it a little bit. So once you get that out, just kind of set it aside, leave it connected, the wire, electrical connector connected. There's this little tab right here that you use with a screwdriver to push it in, and when you do, you push it inward, and then you slide upwards, and then you can remove this electrical connector, and this is for the condenser fan on the opposite side of the radiator. So you can pull that and set it aside out of the way. I'm also going to be doing the thermostat housing, replacing it with the water pump. So we're going to go ahead and remove the upper and lower hose, and we're going to do that by popping the clip out here. So you put a pick tool or a screwdriver in and pop the clip out like that, and then you can use a pry bar. And you also want to get a bucket, put it underneath, because you're gonna dump your coolant. So I put my pry bar here next to the van hose and on the upper radiator hose, and kind of give it just on the lip of it, give it a little pry, and that'll pop the upper hose off. And actually, before I take the lower hose off, I'm gonna go ahead and remove the fan blade. This one's actually broken, but there's supposed to be clips here and here on the fan shroud, so you go ahead and remove the clips here and here. So then your fan shroud, and also one in the center. This one does have it in the center, so we'll remove the clip here. And then the fan shroud will be loose and free, so once we get the fan off, then the fan and the fan shroud itself will come out as one piece. So once you get the clips out of the fan shroud, it'll be free like this. To get the fan clutch off itself, it's the threads on the fan clutch are reverse threads, so you're actually going to go righty to loosen it. So I happen to have a fan clutch tool for it, so you put that on a wrench on the fan clutch. If you don't have the other half of this tool, which is this little ear right here, it catches around the bolt hole, the bolts on the water pump, and then you wedge this part against the other bolt, and it hooks, and it'll hold the water pump in place while you use the wrench to turn the fan free. So you're kind of pulling with both hands, kind of one hand's pulling left, one hand's pulling right, and it'll crack the fan clutch to free. But I've also seen, if you don't have that and you got a wrench that fits on the fan thing, you could take a setup like this, which is an impact gun with a pickle fork on the end of it, and you can hook it on the end of your wrench and hit it clockwise, and a lot of times it will crack the fan clutch free. And that's how I used to do it before I got the tool. But now that I have the tool, there's the part number for the tool if you guys are interested in purchasing it. The wrench that's made by Matco. All the major tool brands carry this. So once you get it crack free, the initial crack free, you can just kind of spin it clockwise and it'll spin off. But you want to be careful not to let it fall and hit the radiator when you get close to the end of it. And there's quite a bit of threads on it. So once you get the fan unscrewed like it is there, you can see it just laying in there. You can grab with one hand with the fan shroud, and the other hand grab the blades and lift them both out at the same time. Now you can go ahead and proceed to remove the lower hose, and just by popping the clip out here. And what I like to do is use like a pry bar and put it on just on the edge of the lip, and kind of, you can hit the end of it with, I do it with my hand, just hit the end of the pry bar with my hand, and do it maybe on on the left and right side of it. And then once you kind of break the seal free, you can use your other hand here, and you can kind of wiggle the hose. This one actually just came off by me wiggling it. I didn't even have to hit it, and then you can pop the hose off. Now it's really easy to go ahead and remove the thermostat now that you got all out of the way. So just you push your little push pin in, take your electrical connector for the sensor, and then kind of take the wiring harness and kind of flip it up here. So to get the thermostat out, you're going to remove the 11mm bolt here, and on this little bracket here goes around underneath. You're going to remove the 13mm bolt here, and then on the thermostat housing there's a couple 10mm bolts. You're going to remove those, and so we're looking underneath the thermostat housing. Get back a little bit so you can see. So you can remove those 2 bolts there that you can see. So there's 4 bolts total holding the thermostat housing, 2 underneath and 2 on top. And then the bracket here you're going to remove. Once you get all that off, the thermostat will come out. The little bracket's not going to want to come all the way out because it's going to be interfered with the vanity hose, but it's just having it loose is good enough. And then you can kind of, after you get the bolts out, slide them, kind of angle it out and slide it out, the thermostat out. Now that we got the thermostat out, the next step will be to, you can go ahead and crack these bolts free on the water pump pulley here. So what the belt on, it aids and makes it a little easier. You can use an impact or air ratchet and hit them, and it'll loosen the bolts up. And if you don't have, if it tries to spin on you, you can use the fan clutch tool like this, and you can see how it hooks onto those bolts like that, and you can, the free bolts down there, you can hold it with the fan clutch tool and crack the tins free with that, so you can kind of see how it works. Okay, so we're going to take off the belts, and the reason why is I'm going to replace the water pump drive belt. So to do that, if you look right underneath the tensioner here, there's a little Torx, a little socket for the Torx to go in. Let's see if I can see it here. So I can see it on my mirror right there. So anyways, it's an E55 Torx. So you put your Torx bit with your ratchet in there, and you rotate it clockwise, and what that does is it pushes this pulley down, and then you can slip this belt off. So your setup will look like that. And let's see if I can get this down here. It'll look just like that. So you can see the Torx in the torque bit on the bottom of the tensioner, and you'll rotate it clockwise, and that'll release the tension. So now the AC belt is off. Now we're going to remove the water pump belt, or the main drive belt. To get the main drive belt off, what we're going to do is right here on the pulley that holds the tensioner is a 8mm Allen socket. So if I can get this down here for you guys. So you're going to put an 8mm socket in there, and I'll show you the setup. This is going to be the setup, and you're going to rotate the clockwise also, and that'll release the tension, and you can slip the belt off. And before you take the belt off, you might want to take a picture of the of how it was routed. So now that I got my belt off, what I'm going to do is go ahead and remove my finish removing my bolts from my water pump here, and pull the pulley off. So you go ahead and remove this pulley, and then after that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to spin all my idler pulleys and my tensioner pulleys and listen to the bearings and make sure that they're not compromised or damaged or have grindy, like a crunchy noise or anything. Spin the alternator and spin all the pulleys by hand and kind of give them a listen, and make sure that they're in good shape. If there are any of them that's compromised or questionable, now's the time to replace them. So now that you've got the pulley off, go ahead and remove the 4 10mm nuts. And then once you get those off, I'm going to show you a little trick on how to actually get the water pump out of the air, because it's pressed in with an O-ring, and it's really tight and it doesn't want to pop out. And I'll show you a trick to get those out. So on the left and right side of the water pump, there's these thread holes. And if you take a 6mm by 1.0 thread size and screw it into those 2 bolt holes and tighten them on equal, so tighten the left, right a little bit. What that does is it'll actually pull the water pump off the block. So you can run the bolts in like this. And as you can see, it's pulling the water pump out. And once the O-ring is clear, then you can just finish pulling the water pump completely out. So now you can wipe out the inside if there's any debris or anything, which most likely it won't be. But all the sealing happens on the inside here, not on the outside. So, but if there's any debris or whatever, go ahead and wipe it off. And And then what you can do is a little lubricant, a silicone-based lubricant on the O-ring here, and we're going to put it back in. And you want the little freeze plug looking thing, you want that facing downwards. So after you get that lubed up, then you can go ahead and put the water pump in there. And once you get it in there, you can usually just wiggle it on, and if you can't wiggle on, you could actually get it on far enough to start a couple of bolt threads on the nuts, and then you can use the nuts to drive the water pump back in. So once you get it all started, and then just go ahead and tighten it up. Now that you got the new water pump back on and tight, we can go ahead and install the pulley. But I wanted to remind you to check the pulley ribs and stuff and make sure that there's no chipped or missing teeth, because these are made out of plastic and they break really easily, especially if somebody's pried on them or anything like that. So inspect yours and make sure it's in good shape, and if it's in good shape, then you can go ahead and put it back on, and then just use the bolts that came with and tighten those back down. And if you're worried about them backing off, you can use blue Loctite or thread sealer, which looks like this, and you just put a little dab of the thread sealer on the threads, and that helps prevent the bolts from vibrating loose and coming back off. So what you can do is run it in right now with the belt off, and tighten it as best you can with the belt off. If you have that tool that I use to hook them, then you can go ahead and torque them down. But if you don't have that, you can run them up as tight as you can get them, and then put the belt on, and then use the tension of the belt to help hold the pulley in place and tighten the bolts up down to their final torque. And that's how the bolts will look with the little thread sealer on it. You don't need a lot. Now that we got our pulley bolted back up, we can go ahead and put the drive belt back on. And I wanted to show you this little diagram of how I route it. This is courtesy of All Data. So there's our setup. Put the belt back on. And the way I did it was I put it around the crank pulley first, and then I wrapped it around the AC. Or actually what I did is put it around the crank pulley first, and I put it around the tensioner like this, and around the water pump. And then I put it over the alternator and then the AC. And then right here last is the belt will kind of be up here, and then you rotate your tensioner clockwise, and it pushes the belt tensioner down, and that gives you enough room to slide it underneath the pulley. This actual diagram doesn't show the idler pulley in it. After that, you can go ahead and put on your AC belt, and it only routes around the 3 pulleys, so it routes around the crank pulley and the AC, and then underneath the tensioner. Okay, now that you got your belts back on, now we just need to make sure that the mating surface where the thermostat went is clean. So if it's got corrosion or anything built up on it, wipe it off, scrape it off, whatever you need to do to get this surface clean, because it's just an O-ring that sits on here. So clean that up, and then now we're ready to put our thermostat back in. So what you're going to do is take this little bracket and kind of flip it out, like this, flare it out, and you're going to tuck this ear underneath it. So it'll kind of look like that. And once you get it underneath it, then you can start your full 4 bolts and go ahead and tighten those down, and then also put the 11mm nut that went on the end of here, and then tighten everything up. Now that you got the thermostat housing all bolted back up, I did it by feel with a 1/4" ratchet, and you just kind of make it tight until you can feel the little rubber seal kind of crush, and then snug it, and that's all you need to do. Now you can go ahead and plug your electrical connector in for the temp sensor here, and that just pushes on, and you want to make sure that the wiring harness is pushed back out of the way like this. Now we can go ahead and put our upper and lower radiator hoses on. And what I did was I put a little lubricant in here, a little silicone based lubricant, so the O-rings don't swell. And I went ahead and pushed the clip back in and locked it in place. Now what you can do is you can line up the hose with the little slots and push it on until you hear the click. And now give it a little tug to make sure it doesn't pop back off, and do the same thing for the lower. So you line it up with the tabs and pull it in until you hear the click, and give it a pull to make sure it doesn't pop back off. Now the hoses are installed. And I also wanted to go ahead and show you guys the BMW thermostat part number. and the water pump number. So now it's time to install the fan clutch and fan shroud at the same time. But I wanted to show you something. As you can see here, these little grooves are not supposed to be here. This is where somebody improperly installed this fan shroud at one time, and it came in contact with the drive belt. So at the very bottom of it is these little catches here, and the little slot here, and they're supposed to catch when you put this in. So underneath the lower radiator hose is one of the catches on the passenger side, and then right down at the bottom is another catch here. So you can see what it's supposed to look like there, and then it also has a little catch here. All those have to line up as you slide it in. So you're going to do this together with the fan and the fan shroud at the same time, and they both slide in together. You can't put one in and then put the other one in. You have to do it together. So with one hand you'll hold the fan shroud like this. With your other hand over the top, you'll drop the fan blade in. And then once it's in there, then you can leave the fan floating, and then you can maneuver the fan shroud itself and put it in there and line up the grooves. And if you're having trouble seeing it, you can lift the car up and take the lower shield off, and you can see those that they've caught in their little catches. So you want to make sure that they catch in there, or else you'll have damage to your fan shroud like this. I went ahead and lifted the vehicle up and took the lower shield off, and you can see on the driver's side how the fan shroud hooks into there, and here, and then right above the right below the radiator hose, it hooks right into the little catch here. So now you can see that the fan shroud is mounted securely, and you can see the fan is in there, but it's just kind of floating. So now that I got it all in, make sure it's caught in this proper catches here, I'll put the lower shield back up and lower the car back down. Also, I wanted to mention right here with the electrical connector, you can go ahead and put a zip tie in this little groove here, around here, and that'll hold the electrical connector to the upper radiator hose, and that way it won't make contact with the fan. So once you got the fan shroud all secure, now you gotta reinstall the actual fan blade itself. So you'll use two hands to do this, and you kind of get it in the area and start it and spin it. And remember, it's backwards thread, so you're going to go counterclockwise to actually tighten this. And then once you got it all the way run in and tight, you could use the tool like this to put on there and do the final snug and tighten it up. Or if you don't have that, you can use the impact hammer with pickle fork on the end, and you know, just put it on there, and make sure you hit it counterclockwise to tighten it a couple hits. And when the engine rotates, when it rotates, it actually rotates in a way where it actually makes the fan tighten, so you don't have to worry about it coming back off. Once you get it started a couple threads, then you can just spin it counterclockwise until it runs all the way in. And then tighten it up your final torque. Now that our fan shroud is re-secured, we're going to go ahead and remount our electrical connector for a condenser fan. So you're going to just slide this into the groove that it came out of and lock it in place. And then you're going to put mine happens to be broken, so I'm going to have to figure a way to fasten it down with a zip tie, but also the wire routes in there. So then this one you push forward and then push it down, and it hooks in the back, and then you pull, and then you push it like that, and that secures it to the fan shroud. And if yours is broken like mine, just go ahead and secure it. And then after that, we're going to fill it up with coolant, and I'm going to show you how to bleed the cooling system. Also wanted to mention, by now you should have already put your clips in to hold the radiator. There's 3 of them, or the fan shroud to the radiator. So go ahead and put those in. And now we're going to fill it up with coolant and bleed the system. I'm going to show you how we do that. To get started, we're going to take this little bleeder screw out here, and I like to remove it completely. And so after removing it, what we're going to do is we're going to fill it up with the proper BMW approved coolant. It's a blue colored coolant, And we're going to fill it until this is completely full, and this is completely full, and it's kind of overflowing, and until all the air bubbles come out of the upper filler, the upper bottle here. So you'll fill it up till it's completely full, and all the bubbles finish coming out right here. And then once you do that, and it's full, and all the bubbles have stopped coming out, you can take the bleeder screw and put it back in. So screw it back in, and then you're going to run it down until it's snug. These are made out of plastic, so you don't need to torque them down super tight, and they have a little rubber O-ring at the end. So you run them down until they're tight, and then once you feel them seat, just a little snug, and that's all you need. If you over tighten that at all, it'll snap off. So now that you got that full to the top, we need to remove some of this coolant, because this is what they call expansion tank. So as it warms up and heats up, this coolant will expand, and if we leave it at this level, it'll actually pop the radiator or pop this bottle or the hose or something like that. So you can use a turkey baster. I got a little tool that's specially designed to suck the coolant out. So we're going to suck some of this coolant out until this bobber here floats perfectly. So as it's over full now, it'll float perfectly with the top of the bottle, just like that. And when you suck out enough coolant where it's floating right at the top of the neck, you know you've got it at the right proper level. So when you're done, your bobber should look just like that. Once you've achieved that, now you can go ahead and put the radiator cap back on, put your air snorkel back on, and now you're ready to go for a test drive. And after you get back from your test drive, what I like to do is let it cool down completely, 15-20 minutes. Take the cap back off, and check to see where the bobber should be flush with the top of the neck. And if that is achieved, that completes the replacement of the thermostat and water pump on a 2004 BMW X5 with the 3-liter. I believe it's the M54 motor. I'm Brian Essick from How To Automotive, and I'd like to thank you guys for watching my videos. I encourage you to subscribe for more valuable videos like this. Thanks again.